was a bar.
Anyone know?
It was a bar or an inn or something.
I like this lady. It was a tavern, and it was actually, if you drive down here about a mile on the right-hand side, the road kind of separates, and one of the chimneys that was for the original Cross Keys Tavern is still there, which is kind of neat. But I remember going someplace down here about 30 years ago, and there was a sign with 2 cross keys, and it was the original sign somebody had saved. I have no idea where that is right now. But I wanted you, so if you were to actually take your map and turn it upside down, and then you were to face in this direction, so if you're facing towards the Confederate position, which is way out there, this would be Union Church on our right, and the Union line would actually stretch more than a mile in that direction to your left. So if you look at this, the representation of those blue little, triangle, or not triangles, but what do you call them? Rectangles, heading in that direction, that would be the line. So originally, if you were going from Port Republic and you wanted to go to Harrisonburg, this was the main road to get there. Oh. And so you would come by here, you'd make a right-hand turn, you get down and make a left-hand turn and head to Harrisonburg. This is the main road. So fairly early in the morning, some of you read this sign already, there's a church service going on here. And just as things start to heat up here, you've got the 15th Alabama here, and you got Cluzero bringing in some Union troops. There's an artillery shell that's fired from over here at the artillery position, and it comes in close enough that the minister is here, and how did he say it?
Hit the deck.
Basically, he says, maybe it's time to adjourn to next week. Mm-hmm. And so the church service that was going on was adjourned, and everybody left, and they let the battle take place. Now, if you look at that upside down, and you're looking at me, you've got Union Church here. Early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, the first Union troops start to arrive. And what you have is, I'm without glasses, so this is all from memory, okay? So you get here, and there's the 8th Virginia Union, okay? So it's going to be named the 8th West Virginia, later. And you've got the 60th Ohio. When you have 2 regiments together, those brigades of just 2 regiments are called demi-brigades. And so what happens is you've got the 15th Alabama of future Gettysburg fame. They're going to be in this area just across the road, and they're going to send out some skirmishers out this way, just beyond the edge of this cemetery. And so as those Union troops start to press in on the 15th Alabama, the skirmishers do some firing back and forth, but the 15th Alabama up here says, I don't like this. And if you notice, there's some red dotted lines on your map. The 15th Alabama actually will, without firing a shot, retreat all the way back to the Confederate line, which is not these trees, but the trees you can see in the far distance.
Is that Artillery Road?
Artillery Road, Artillery Ridge would be up there. So with them moving out this way with Cluzero will stay here. The 15th Alabama will go in that direction. And then here you have 2 brigades. You have Schenk's mainly German brigade here. Milroy is next to them. Milroy will become famous later for the Second Battle of Winchester. So you have Schenck and Milroy, and if you look at the line here, you've got a commander named Stahl. Your overall division commander here is a German named Blanker, and of course Fremont is your overall commander. And Fremont is known as being the great pathfinder out west before the Civil War. Found a lot of trails to the Pacific Northwest. Probably not one of your best military commanders. He had been fired once by Abraham Lincoln, and somehow they reconsidered it, sent him up to what's now Western Virginia, and eventually ended up moving troops up the valley to this location, and will fight against Dick Ewell's troops over here. Now, Stonewall Jackson, who's in overall command, will never come to this location. Never. The whole battle is fought by one of his subordinates, Richard Ewell. So as the men start to arrive, they start to fan out in that direction, as your map shows. So you remember at our last place we were at, I mentioned the name of of Trimble, right? So Trimble is up on that hill up there I was talking about, and what he does is he asks his commander, "Can I move forward?" Like I mentioned, and they'll eventually move out to a fence out here and kind of find a kind of a concealed position in some woods, and they'll stay there. And in the meantime, Fremont is here, and he's starting to hear some infantry fire off in that direction. So he gets a little bit nervous, and what he does is he takes his reserves, which would be Colts, for example, and Bowen, and he would start to move them in that direction. The overall idea that Fremont had was he would move some of his men in that direction, try to hit the Confederates on their right flank, and then drive them out of here. Well, once the firing starts to take place, like I said, he gets nervous, he starts sending his reserves, and then he comes up with the idea, without even knowing what's out there, doesn't know the lay of the ground, what the hills, the streams, anything, he goes ahead and commits 2 brigades to make a frontal attack on the Confederate position. And if you look at your second map will actually show you, if you turn it upside down, that Milroy and Schenck are moving in the direction of the Confederate line. Milroy actually will make it to the Confederate line and start to launch their attack. Will eventually be called back because the firing and shooting over here becomes so general that Fremont loses his nerve and actually calls those 2 brigades back here. So what you have is a line that develops here. You've got the Confederates that are here retreating back to the main line, fighting over there. Then you've got a commitment to battle of 2 brigades heading in that direction. One of the first things that Milroy will do is, you see the White House out here? Just beyond that's another knoll, and Milroy, as he moves his men out, will take his artillery and post them on a little ridge just beyond there. And when Mike was talking about the counter battery firing that was going on, it would have been between Union gun positions there and the ones on Artillery Ridge, which is where we're going to go next. So just kind of, just to summarize, a line of Union troops here, about 12,500, about 6,500 at best Confederates on the high ground over there, and you've got a commander who really hates to, he's always afraid he's going to make a mistake. So anyways, he gets real nervous, but he does launch an attack there. Then his reserves is just something he shouldn't do. And then he commits the rest of his army, the 2 brigades that are here, to make an attack, a direct attack here. Now he's thinking direct attack here, a flank attack over there, and he's pretty much assured that he's going to win this battle. Well, that's great until he gets cold feet and hauls everyone back.
Is Fremont's entire army here? Or
yes.
Some in Harrisonburg?
There's some. Some of his cavalry is still back there. There's a couple of sections of the 2nd Maine Battery that he leaves back there as well. But other than that, most everybody is here, though.
Did you have a lot of cavalry here?
No.
That's what he
And
mixed up.
yeah, a couple of days before, actually, the Confederate Turner Ashby had been mortally wounded, actually, down in Harrisonburg. And so they don't have him, and without him, they basically don't have any cavalry here either. Because without him, there is no command structure. So yeah, and the only Union cavalry that they have are actually sent out so far out that as far east from here as you can imagine, heading in that direction. So they never get involved. So, but yeah, no cavalry action here.
That's the eyes and ears. They need those.
It is. Well, the other thing too is when you're making an attack here, it's always good if you've never seen the land before is maybe have some skirmishers. And they don't really do that. They just send them out there blind, not knowing what they're getting into. When we travel from here to Artillery Ridge, you have to I'll slow down as we go there, but on the right-hand side, there is a Mill Creek, or the store is named after, which is there. During 1862, it was the 3rd wettest spring and summer that they'd had in the valley ever. And water is high, even though Creek is high. And so the troops that leave here are going to have to go up and down hill, cross Mill Creek, and then there is a pretty sheer cliff that goes up where the Confederates have set up their men and their guns. So for anyone making an attack like that blind, I'll show you when we get there. There's basically a killing field out there.
Not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
There you go. But as the Union troops start to come down across the creek and want to ascend the ridge that the Confederates are on, crossing that open area is just murder. Anyways, yes?
Does this cemetery have any men that were killed in battle here or not?
Yeah, well, there's an interesting story about that. Thanks for asking. This cemetery was here. Actually, there was some skirmishing that was done inside the cemetery after the 15th Alabama left. So, about 8 years ago, when I first started giving tours, I had 4 people from Delaware. And one of them actually, his family was from Maryland. And he knew that his great-great-grandfather had fought in the 1st Maryland Southern. And he also knew or guessed that his grandfather had been killed in this campaign, probably over at the battle that takes place in Harrisonburg. But nobody in the family knew where his great-great-granddad was buried. So we came here, and he looked at the stones over there, and he walked over there to that stone on the right, and that was his great-great-grandfather. And the family was reunited, after 160 years, something like that. But I got to tell you though, because it was going to bring tears to my eyes, because when he found it, he cried, and I'm thinking, I'm crying, I have no idea what's going on. But every time I tell it, it's just, it's kind of neat to be able to bring people to a place near where your great-great-granddad had been killed, and then to find his burial place, actually. And ever since then, somebody has been putting up the Confederate battle flags, on those stones, because both of those men that are buried there were killed, over at Goods Farm or at the Battle of Harrisonburg. So, good question. I love telling that story. Thank you. But yes, some of the stones out here have bullet marks in them. I have searched high and low, and I have not found them yet. Okay. Any other questions about where we are and what's going on here?
You talked about skirmishes.
Alabama that was down there that has so much fame at Gettysburg. This actual wayside talks about them, because remember when they run back here. They'll go all the way over to where the store was, where we started. They'll get in line and they'll push in that direction. So they're literally going from the farthest advance all the way around the Confederate Army, and they get involved in a fight with the 8th New York, actually, on that side of the battlefield, which is pretty incredible when you think about a warm day like today. So what I'd like to show you, this is the Confederate line. There would be 4 batteries of artillery at the end of the field up here, stretching in that direction. Mike believes there were actually one section or 2 guns that was across the road, actually, back where the store was. I don't always agree what he says. He doesn't always agree what I say. So. But in any case, what happened was there would be 4 batteries. There would be 3 batteries with 4 guns each, and then one section of another battery, less battery, which would have just 2 guns. So mounted on this ridge down at the end here would be 14 artillery pieces, okay? So if you're very careful, this gentleman has walked this before, but I want to show you the Confederate position and the advantage that the Confederates had. Now this field that you can see through the trees, there would have been no trees, just scrub brush at the time of the war. The killing field would have been out there. This is where Milroy's men would have come across and tried to attack the high ground here. Here, and you look down, you can see Mill Creek. And you can see the killing field out here. All of Milroy's troops would have crossed that field, would have had to cross the flooded creek, climbed this ridge, and there would have been roughly 4,000 Confederates up here saying, no you don't. So, but just imagine, especially if you come down a little bit farther and you look at the creek down here. And if you look at this ridge, as steep as this, runs all the way down to where the store was, swoops around here and runs all the way to the end of the Confederate line down here on the left, which is where the 1st Maryland is. But just imagine, without the trees, trying to take this position.
On the far side of that grass field, do you think it's maybe 300 yards from here?
Oh, it's probably, to the end of that field, it's probably 400 yards. Easily.
But still, easy rifle musket range.
Well, and most of them had smooth bores that were here anyways. Most of Jackson's men had been supplied by Banks with some rifle weapons, but they weren't here.
Okay.
So they're firing out a little piece of lead and then 3 very small pieces of what they call buck and ball in that direction. Good out to maybe 100 yards.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, but you've got artillery up here firing canister out towards Milroy. And so they're under artillery fire, and when they get close enough, and they will get to the base of this hill, then they're getting buck and ball shot from up here. And literally, if you can imagine just running across that field trying to get up here, it's just, you know, I don't think.
Suicide.
Yeah, it's suicide. Fortunately for Milroy, he got to the bottom of the hill, and his commanding officer said, "I was only kidding, bring your men back." And Milroy was upset, to say the least, because he said he could take the hill. Okay, I don't think so. But
As far as the trees go, I don't see a lot of old growth trees and stuff, so you think they were pretty...
this was all open field here. There was scrub brush on this, you know, on this hill. But other than that, you would have had a completely nice view of everybody that's approaching of you. And if you think about it, you know, Milroy had about 2,600 men. Schenck had a few less than that, but Schenck is over there. He never really makes contact with the Confederate left. But Milroy, he comes right in. He is a fighter. He's one of the few fighters that, you know, that Fremont has that day.
Well, if that was farmland, that was it would probably tilled, and probably with all the rain they had, it would have been even worse.
I would think you're right. It's probably quite muddy as well. I know that this was just you know, a morass. You couldn't get across it probably, you know, especially if you're looking at something that's more like 3 feet deep as opposed to what it is right now.
Yeah.
But if you cross over the hill and come down here, you intercept with a lot of flies. So let's go back up on the hill, okay?
But you know, if they could get it.
Most of these men fought here. So what the foundation did, they moved the monument to here. So this is a monument to the Talbot boys for Talbot County in Maryland. These would have been some of the Marylands that came to the Confederate side and formed the 1st Maryland Infantry, Southern. The monument, the folks in Baltimore didn't like it anymore. They were going to destroy it, so the foundation said, look, they didn't fight exactly here, but they were here at this battle, and many others, so they moved the monument here to save it. So, just, you know, so you know why it's here.
So did Maryland have
4 guns, and then 2 on the far end, and those are the ones that Mike says were probably over by Mill Creek store. So you had Lusk, Rice, Rains Battery, and you had Courtney's Battery, and that was the 2 guns. Most Confederate batteries during the Civil War were 4 guns. Most Union batteries were 6. For some reason here, you would have had the first 3 batteries lined up with 4 guns, but Courtney, for example, in the end only had 1 section or 2 guns to fire. But still, 16 guns firing in this direction. When those guys get within 400 yards, Michael said, that's when you can start firing shrapnel basically at them, and that's when the men really start to fall, especially if you have 16 basically shotguns, high-powered shotguns, shooting, 120 some odd pieces of lead at them from out here. That makes this definitely, like I said, a killing field. And then if they ever got closer, the destruction would have been amazing. So think about it. The Confederates are outnumbered 3 to 1 almost. And if you look over here, with the 3 Confederate regiments plus the 2 of Walker's, what do? When the Union troops start to attack the left flank, they go on the offensive. They're outnumbered 8 or 9 to 1 probably, and they kick butt. They really do. They force the left of the, actually basically 3 brigades. They've got 5 regiments, and they press back probably, several times their number, push them all the way back to the Union main lines where they had started from. But this is where the artillery would have been placed. Anyone have any questions? All right.
That's probably why they couldn't. Why we were so outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
That artillery just.
So at one point, Stonewall Jackson starts to ride out here because he hears the noise going on. And as he does, those Louisiana troops that had been sent back to take care of him, he says to them, look, we're good, how do things look out here? And the commander of these Louisiana troops says, we're going to head back, we can take care of it if they get in trouble. So Jackson just goes back to Fort Republican, leaves this battle entirely up to Dick Ewell, which is, quite interesting. He had that much trust in him.
Didn't Fremont never leave his tent during this entire battle?
No, he did roam the line. He spent some time actually at Union Church over there when he was the one that ordered the 2 brigades to move forward. But I don't know if he ever went to the left of the line, to be honest with you, except when he arrived probably, and that was probably it. Yeah, any other questions? I know it's actually kind of warm, right? Yeah.
Oh, we're doing
It's just the bugs.
These are the gnats.
Okay.
These are for the gnats.
I did hear
is
that
warm.
too.
So
Yeah.
there is the next stop that we have is where the 8th New York is actually practically annihilated. And I'd like to go there with everyone. The walk that we just did, it's about the same walk. Is everybody up for that? Is that okay? And what I'd like to do is take a couple of you with me, and we'll go out in front, and you'll get an idea. We'll come up over the hill, and you'll be able to see how easy it was for concealed Confederate troops to completely surprise the 8th New York when they
As
made
long as
their...
nobody's shooting at you.
Yeah, right. No guns in the Confederate.
And this was all forest. So where we're moving to would be the edge of the forest. So I always like to pick this stuff up because remember this is a forest, right? So one of the skirmishers, some of the skirmishers ahead of the Confederates come out here and they look to the hill in the distance and they see a regiment moving in this direction. So what happens is the skirmishers go back and all the Confederates come from over there on the other side of this mound to this area. They line up along this fence, and what they start to do is they pick up some dead leaves and they start filling in the gaps. And why do they do that? So that nobody can see them. So remember, if you look at your map, or you look at the map here, you've got the 21st Georgia here, the 15th Mississippi here, and the 15th Alabama is over there. Now, the 8th New York is going to come straight here towards them. They're going to be lined up. As they move down off the hill, they run into some Confederate skirmishers, and they start to push them. My thought is they think they have the Confederates on the run, and they continue to push them all the way back here. Now, they say that when they fired at them, this would have been a wheat field that would have been fully in growth at that time. So you're talking about, probably your field out there would have been waist high. As the men come up over the hill, they start to become visible. They don't have any idea there's anyone here. When the first regiment that's here gets up and starts to fire, they're firing directly on. But if you look at your map, though, you've got over here the 16th Mississippi and then the 15th Alabama beyond that. So if these guys are firing head on at them, what are these guys doing?
Enfilade.
Enfilade. I like that. She knows her stuff. So you're right. So these guys, once they start to fire, these guys move out and start firing down on their flank. So they say you've got roughly 550 8th New Yorkers out here. They've never been in combat before.
Germans, aren't they?
What's that?
Germans?
They're Germans, which is always a communication problem if not everybody, including your officers, speaks the same language. But they'll come up over the hill without skirmishers, kind of pushing those skirmishers back. And if they do, they get right here, they just open up on them. You can't see them because they've stuffed leaves and grass and everything in between the logs and everything, and it is a massacre. You've got 250 or more soldiers that just plain drop. Now, what's interesting, if you look at the overall casualties here, the majority of the casualties for the Union troops is this one regiment. So in other words, if you look at maybe 550, casualties, half of them are actually from the 8th New York. And the reason the 8th New York goes out in front is because you've got a whole line of troops under Boland that are moving out in this area, but the 8th New York they have the worst luck because where their line is in their position in line is, they are actually, because of the fields, able to move faster than everybody else. So the 8th New York gets out ahead of everybody, and then they get to this location, come up over the hill. I mean, the commanding officer is walking backwards, leading his men this way. He has no idea what he's facing. These men, as they come up and they see the first fire, probably that whole line goes down the very first, time they fire. They reload and fire again. I mean, the survivors of this, you're talking a couple hundred men, they're actually able to get off the field here under their own power, just hightail it in that direction. And of course, as they go in that direction, they bump into other troops, Union troops, and word gets out, there are a lot of troops here, which is not true. You've got 3 regiments that are here. There's another. What's that?
How many is that?
You probably, they say about 1,500 Confederates are here versus 550, and they just get, they get wiped out, buck and ball. So over here, though, there's another guy. His name is Walker. He has the 25th and 13th Virginia, and they're going to come up in that direction and get on the flank of these men. And so what's going to happen is they've got the 8th New York in retreat, and then you've got 5 regiments, actually, Confederate regiments, pushing this way, outnumbered considerably, probably 3 or 4 to 1, pushing this whole wing of the Army, the Union Army, back towards Fort Republic Road. So what happens is, when Confederate troops get out here, the right of the Confederate line is now back. Well, you can see the store there. It's considerably to the right of that. There's a gap here of maybe a quarter of a mile. Trimble will push his men more than a mile farther. When the gap in the line, one thing you don't want to do in warfare is to create a gap in your line that somebody can exploit. But what Trimble does is he moves more than a mile and a quarter from his own line, opens up this huge gap, inviting people to walk through it, and gets away with it. And he pushes all of these Union troops all the way back. Any questions? Yeah.
1862, correct?
Yes.
How advanced is the ambulance corps at this point? Like who's taking these people to hospital or?
Jackson does have some ambulances. They'll come into play, especially at Port Republic. This battle is not as bloody. It's one of the lesser bloody battles for the Confederates. The bloodiest battle that Jackson had in this whole campaign is actually the next day at Port Republic. And many say it's the battle that didn't have to take place.
So it's kind of the locals picking up after.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's only one bridge left across the river, and that's North River. And if you go into Port Republic across the new bridge, the old bridge is where it was, is to the left. to get across South River, which is not wide, there is no bridge. The only way you get from Port Republic to the other side of the river is to wade it. So when Jackson's army comes across, there had been Union troopers, cavalry that entered the day before. It entered into port, but they were on horses, and the horses could cross the river. But if you have men that are walking, the river was far too strong for them to cross. So what they did is they rolled some wagons into the river, put boards across them, and all the men that are here to get to the Battle of Port Republic have to cross this narrow bridge, whereas the artillery crossed because they're being hauled by horses. But the men had to cross this narrow bridge. There are a lot of funny stories about men that would get partway across the bridge and then off they'd go into the river and then they wouldn't be seen again, you know what I mean, because it was that strong. So just remember, there is a covered bridge here. Once this battle is over, all of the Confederate troops will cross the bridge, and then Jackson burns the bridge so that Fremont can't cross it to join up with another force of men that are coming down under James Shields on the other side of the Massanutten. And that'll be a battle will be fought on June 9th. This is June 8th right here.
Even with the horses going across the bridge with the artillery, because the artillery was so heavy.
They had to wait. They had to.
Be a struggle.
I have no idea where that is.
Hey, there's your lightning.
Oh,
There's lightning?
yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should.
It has that look too, from living over here.